Hey, it's Jen. We are so excited to announce that we are doing a new series for our after school paid subscribers. We love Taylor, obviously. We've been going through song by song, also fantastic, but we constantly are talking about how she has these motifs, these themes, these theses that she has for each album. So we are kicking off the series where we will be deep diving her albums one by one, starting with, of course, her debut self titled album. So here is a free preview so you can get a little feel for what this episode is. But if you are interested in listening to the full episode or becoming a paid subscriber, check out our Substack. That's where you can subscribe. The link is in the show notes. So if you just go back to wherever you're looking at the podcast and you look at the description of this episode, you'll see the link right there and you can subscribe there and get access to the full episode. But in the meantime, enjoy this preview.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of AP Taylor Swift, the podcast for Swifties who like to dive a layer deeper into the music. So lean in close, turn up your volume, because class is in session. We're your hosts. I'm Monsi.
I'm Jen.
And I'm Jody.
And we are your unofficial professors of Taylor Swift.
We love.
I think the title of it being her name was good branding, in my opinion, of like, oh, have you listened to the new Taylor Swift album? People can just Google Taylor Swift album, and this album would have shown up at the time.
I think you need name recognition at that.
Yeah.
And it's your first album. I don't know how common it is to have your debut album be self-titled, but I think it makes a lot of sense. So that I think we talked about this when we talked about the Tim McGraw in our historical criticism episode,
Mm-hmm.
episode 77, or like 2006, like peak prime SEO optimization and Google
Yeah.
time. So people are, if you hear about something, going onto Google and typing it in, and you want to have that, that
Yes.
search term
Yeah.
be like
Yeah.
only your name. And we know also with one of the things that was unique about this album was Taylor's use of social media to promote it. She was heavily involved in MySpace and promoting this on MySpace and really creating a community of fans, which really
Yeah.
helped propel this album on the charts in a way that other albums, especially other country albums, really hadn't seen. And that's, again, all none of this would have been possible without the internet and without specifically Taylor's masterful use of the internet. And we know now how amazing of a marketer she is. That
Yeah.
kind of started right at the beginning.
I also think it was really interesting that she chose to make that entry into country itself, because we've talked about like she moved to Nashville, she played the guitar, but she's originally from Philly. And I feel like she established herself very quickly as country
Yeah.
girl as much as possible so that nobody could question her right to be there. You know, like this album cover is like the blonde hair, the ringlets, the blue eyes. I mean, she's got beautiful, stunning blue eyes. I've never seen them highlighted as much as you do here. And like we know later with 1989, she went for this like, or actually even as early as Red, like she started going with this bold red lip look that became her signature. But here you don't see that yet. What you do see is like blonde hair, blue eyes, like very much country girl established right off the bat. She had the accent, even though she wasn't from the South. And she just really like went all in, committing to, if this is the industry that we're going to make our debut in, I'm going to like fully be the part.
It's just kind of wild to me still to look at it. I also think just looking at like her signature on the front, the idea of like again, it's just so hard to not see it with what we know now, like looking
Right.
in hindsight. But like the number of times we've seen videos of her writing that
Finding
same
it.
signature to, crowds of screaming fans and stuff, and like here it is with this sweet little baby face. It is also interesting
Yeah.
too, and this is just a broader statement, but for someone to have started to achieve fame that young, like totally agree with the red lip, but also like at 16, a red lip would have been a very, very, very bold choice to be like a 16-year-old girl and be like,
Yeah,
I am figuring it,
absolutely.
especially in the 2000s. And so some of it too was interesting. I mean, she's talked about this, but like, you're frozen in this saying about famous people being frozen, but on the day they became famous and like her having to kind of continuously reinvent herself or find ways to like help people see that she is like growing up and changing and stuff, and to go back to this and just like, yeah, she was a kid when this started. Like, I know that, but really sitting with it is like, that's insane. Thank God her family was nice and not like Britney Spears' family, I
For
guess.
sure.
That's true. You really do see a difference with stars where they have that support versus when they don't and they're kinda left to this industry on their own.
Yeah.
I would like to call out that the photo editing software was called Picnic. Did
Okay.
you guys ever use Picnic?
No.
I swear
No.
all of these like, the exact like, this was made in Picnic.
I love
I
that.
used to use it on my Facebook photos all the time, and it had, like, this negative space,
The
like,
original
wherever
Facetune.
it like, truly.
Well, should we get into the songs?
Yeah, which the first one we have discussed quite a bit already on our podcast history.
Yeah, so song track number 1 is Tim McGraw, written by Taylor Swift and Liz Rose and produced by Nathan Chapman. As Jen mentioned, we covered this song on episode 77 in historical criticism, and then we did a deep dive on episode 78. So if you're looking for a full line by line analysis of the song, that's where you head. But I think from in terms of its place on the album and its place as her first single. Like, this is how she
Ever.
introduced herself to the world.
Yeah, so strategic. I mean, we've talked about the SEO, but, like, it was just pure power strategy move to me. I think that name could have been any other name on the planet. It could have been Joe Schmo, but she was very thoughtful about the industry she was coming in, who she's gonna pick, and I do love Tim McGraw's interviews about this, where he was having, like, an existential crisis because of this, and he was like, "Am I a has-been that
Right.
now gets referenced by teenage girls?"
Yeah, and so
Oh, what
according
a
to
move.
Wikipedia, this song was written in 2005 and it was released as a single June 19th, 2006. So a number of months before the actual album. So this was clearly released to drum up excitement and anticipation for the album. And we know from one of the many documentary, I don't even know, I think it was either Miss America, must have been Miss Americana, where, Taylor would show up at every radio station and say like, call in and request Tim McGraw, and that was much more memorable than saying, like, "Call in and request the latest single from Taylor Swift, blah, 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 blah," right? Like, you can say, like, "Oh, Tim McGraw, huh? Do you mean Tim McGraw, the song? Well, here's this song, Tim McGraw by this new artist. Let's play that."
Yeah, I feel like I also have seen like a screenshot from her MySpace page back in the day that was like, keep calling in and requesting, quote, that Tim McGraw song, like
Exactly.
everyone.
Yeah, just incredible.
I know we did a deep dive, so we've chatted through all of these lyrics at some point, but I still feel like it's worth discussing because
Yes,
it's
bringing it
the
up.
beginning of this album, both when you listen to it, it's the beginning when it came out release what like it's setting the stage for everything. So I think it's worth revisiting some of these and thinking about it again.
One thing that she's doing here is she first of all, we get the kind of storytelling that we can expect from the rest of this album right away in this song. Like you're referencing a song in a story. This is a theme that comes up again and again in here. If there's like a bigger story and then there's these little vignettes, and sometimes it's referencing some other song in the song. Um, I think that it is really also like our first intro to how she references the greats. I mean, throughout her discography, she will make these allusions to historical people, famous people. Like, I mean, in this industry to come in at this young age to something that was culturally relevant, something that people would immediately associate with country music, and referencing it not just as like, I mean, definitely for the name dropping purposes, but also just to like cement this song in the lore of country music. A lot of her references do that, right? Like they elevate the song beyond just like a song that little girls listen to something that is rooted and something that has a level of legitimacy, I think. Um, and I think whether you're referencing Aristotle or referencing Tim McGraw, like, some of the name dropping helps do that, of, like, really ground it in something concrete and larger than the music itself.
I also think it's interesting to consider, like, I think that in who knows her intentions, like, who knows how, every single step she thought through, probably a lot of them. But I also think there's something sweet to think of that, again, that sweet face we saw, that young girl, that some of this was probably strategic and some of it was also probably really aspirational.
Yeah.
Of like, I would love for my name to be in conversation with Tim McGraw.
Right.
That would be so cool. Like, there's probably a little bit of both happening there. And I think that's kind of sweet to consider that.
Yeah, I love that, like, in conversation with. I think she's always aspired to be in conversations with people, and you can wait for other people to organically get there, or you just go ahead and put it out in the universe, like Taylor Swift and Clara Bow, or, like, she's done this for years, and it's just so cool how early that started.
What an nostalgic, interesting way to talk about what is essentially just like an ex-boyfriend and a summer romance in the past. Like, it's such a mature, interesting way to tell this story. There's a lot of themes of heartbreak and like young love on this album, but I think starting out with Tim McGraw is just a really astute way to tell the story to make it seem, because I think one of the concerns with record labels that didn't want to pick her up because they were like, she's a 15, 16-year-old girl. What could she possibly write that's going to be relatable? And in fact, record labels, I think it was Sony, that wanted to wait until she was 18 to actually release her first album. And she was like, no, I have things to say now that are relevant to my life now. And I want to release those songs while they're relevant to me. So I think,
It's actually the country industry was a little bit more serious of an industry
yeah,
even at
she was
the time.
really
It
one
was
of the
older.
first young
Yeah.
Yeah.
teenage performers in country, right? We talked about,
Yeah.
Hannah Montana and the Jonas Brothers and all these Disney channels.
Right.
Like, they weren't country, they were pop. Hannah Montana
Yeah.
had a twang, but that's because it was Miley
Well, and
Cyrus. But
Disney itself was, do we call them a
The
label? I don't
pop
know, a
culture.
they did have a
conglomerate.
Yeah.
label. They did have a
Well,
label, but it was,
Disney
yeah,
as a
it's a
whole was
machine.
yeah, it was like one of the only conglomerates where teens could kind of get that stage because it was wholesome and family friendly and, whatever. It was the acceptable way for
Right.
teens
It
to get
had a
out there.
whole packaged brand around who you
Yes.
are as a performer, and you weren't just a musical artist, you were probably also an actor, and you were probably also a consumer packaged goods brand with a clothing, right? It was like a whole thing. To be
Yeah.
a teenage country artist in 2006, especially as a girl, I wasn't even call her a woman, she's a
Right.
girl at this stage,
Yeah.
is
Mhm.
totally rare because who was the industry? The industry bigwigs are all likely white men, definitely men, likely white men.
Yeah.
And we see this a lot in business and VC. It's hard for women to get fundraising. Uh, Country music in 2006, it's hard for a teenage girl to be taken seriously. So I think using the name Tim McGraw, referencing a great, telling her teenage heartbreak story through the lens and the narrative of a very well respected male figure in country music makes this more palatable for everybody in her record label and everybody in her circle, which I think will be interesting if I know we just started this series, but maybe our next series is like we go track by track and just look at all of her track ones and all of her track twos or all of her singles. Because I think as we saw as her career grows, we have seen things, where her label tended to dictate what your first single is. And maybe they did here too. I don't know. Whatever it is, this was a great choice
It worked.
and it
Yeah,
worked.
totally.
But but not just because it's a great song, but because of what it does and where it sits to position
Right.
her within the music industry. A first single is not just this is my favorite song, let's release it. The first single has to have a purpose, and the purpose for this first single is to introduce her to the world.
Thank you for listening to this free preview episode. If you'd like to listen to the full episode, you can do so by subscribing at Substack. Again, that link can be found in the description of this episode, or you can go to aptaylorswift.substack.com. If becoming a paid subscriber is not in the cards for you right now, but you want to still support the podcast, you can follow us for free, become a free subscriber on Substack, subscribe to us on whichever podcast platform you're using to listen to us, rate and review, all the things. You already know them, but they do go a really long way to helping small creators like us who are self-funding these little hobbies that we love and care about deeply. So we appreciate your support. Thank you for listening. And again, you could subscribe at aptaylorswift.substack.com.
That's all we have for you today on AP Taylor Swift. Be sure to rate and review us on your favorite podcast app. Follow us on your social channel of choice at AP Taylor Swift to stay up to date. And join us next time as we overanalyze and deep dive into the next Taylor Swift song on AP Taylor Swift.